Hello and welcome to the Cyberden, your weekly dose of tech and games. I, Jake the Voice, will be chatting with none other than professional voice actress Janna Polzin, best known as the voice of the sadistic mercenary Caroline from Viscerafest. Thanks for coming, mate.
Thank you for having me, Jake.
Now, Janna, please tell everyone listening, what got you interested in pursuing a career in acting?
I guess it can start as a kid. My sister and I were always heavily interested in TV and movies and acting stuff out and the creative world in general, I suppose. And I started singing as a teenager, and that kind of just naturally merged into doing community theater stuff. And, of course, we did, I think Grease was my first musical, and kind of fell in love with it after that. And I did well at it, and I was enjoying it. And that sort of snowballed into choosing that to focus on in college. So I did a 3-year musical theater program, and then moved to Toronto and started pursuing theater acting, and sort of merged into voice acting. Voice acting is kind of always in your periphery, as any sort of professional actor might tell you. It's always just sort of there as another basket to throw your eggs into. You're always looking for ways to generate income and generate work. So it was always kind of around, and I was always interested in it. But then anytime I thought I generated any type of buzz or momentum, I had to go off to a different part of the province to do a show for 4 months. So it was never really the right time, I guess, to really focus on voice acting. Not to mention, I never really thought it could be the one and only thing. But after about 10-ish years on stage, I kind of stopped feeling like it was the thing for me. And then mixed with having a baby, I basically started to just put my whole focus into voice acting and really made that transition, looking for something that was more flexible to stay home with the kid, and something, though, that wouldn't completely throw my whole skill set out the window, sort of thing. And I haven't really looked back. I'm really loving the voice work.
Your acting career includes over 10 years of musical theatre experience. Please tell us more about that. Would you say that there were many memorable moments during your time on stage?
Oh, yeah, for sure, of course. For me, it was a tough start. I did a couple shows right out of college, but it was hard to sort of break into the industry, and it takes a long time to generate, a reputation, I guess. It's a lot of years of hustle to sort of do that. And so for a while, I was thinking that I would quit after a couple years because it wasn't really working out. And I got offered a permanent position at a temp agency, at an office through a temp agency I was working with. And I said, you know what, I have one last audition and I'll let you know how that goes. Well, that audition turned out to be, there was a pretty big reality competition series called How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria that happened in Toronto. And it was basically like an American Canadian Idol type show where the end prize was the lead role in The Sound of Music. So I ended up doing very well in that and ended up in the finale and came in second place. And so what sort of came out of that experience was that sort of reputation that I had been lacking. Everyone kind of knew who I was and what I could do now, so it just made things a lot easier. It opened a lot of doors in the theater world for me, and that job in particular was really awesome because I got to perform the role. They ended up, giving me the role anyway twice a week, so it was an 8-show-a-week run. The winner, Alicia, would perform it 6 times a week, and I got to perform it twice a week. And usually when you are an understudy, you have a role in the production, and then when the lead goes out, then you take that over that role and someone else comes in and fills your role. Well, for me, I didn't have a main role at all, but they wanted me to stay in the theater. So basically for 6 shows out of the week, I just got to hang out at a professional theater in Toronto and just chill. And it was awesome. It was probably the best job I'll ever have. So, I could watch the show. I could go hang out in certain dressing rooms. I could go hang out in the wig department or the costume department. And it was the most hands-on awesome learning experience I think I could have ever imagined. And then, big shows are always pretty cool to do, but for me, I also really loved the Toronto Fringe Festival, being a part of that, which is just a big festival in the summer where everyone sort of creates new work and tests out new fun things, and it always felt like you were in like an old classic theater troupe, because you always had to like set up yourself and be your own cast and crew and then take it down, because there were a bunch of different shows in every venue. And I really, really enjoyed doing any type of fringe production.
Is musical theatre something that you'd like to try and get into again in the future, if possible?
I never say never, but at this point, not really. I don't really miss it. I think I've heard other voice actors talk about when you sort of make that transition into voice acting, it opens up more choice. You're not really limited to what you can do on stage. So it's nice that bit of pressure is off. Like, you don't have to worry about your physicality. Like, if you need to do jumping jacks to get this line out, that's what you do, and nobody cares, as long as it sounds right. So I'm really happy with what I'm doing now, and it's certainly not full-time for me right now, especially with lockdowns and virtual school with my kid and everything. It's been honestly a blessing through the pandemic to do voice acting and to be able to do it, without getting sort of affected in that way. But yeah, I don't think so right now, but maybe I'll go back and do some fringe festival shows because they're so much fun.
Now let's talk about Viscerafest. How did you get the role of Caroline? Do you enjoy voicing the character? And if so, what is it that you like about her?
God, could you imagine if I said no? Do I enjoy it? Of course I enjoy voicing her. She is wild and bananas, and I love her. How did I get it? I think I got the role probably just the way I get any voice role, which is through a specific website. Now, I can't remember if they approached me like through my demo or something, or if I just auditioned for their breakdown. I don't quite remember, but I did go back because I had to remember how they described her. They said, quote, "She's sadistic, energetic, smug, and insane." And I just remember having like just an instinctual reaction to that as like a hell yes, please. Sometimes when you get a breakdown for a character, you sort of have to really work to try to find who that person is or who you want her to be. And then sometimes you get a character like Caroline where it just comes in and you're like, I know exactly who I want that woman to be, and I want to play her. And luckily they agreed, and the rest is history, I guess. And yes, I love voicing Caroline. It's just a fun time. It's one of those jobs where you kind of walk away from it thinking, I can't believe someone's paying me to do that.
Any favorite lines for this character?
There is one line. I don't know what the swearing situation is on here, but it's bonsai with a expletive. I think anyone who knows, they'll know. Yeah, and there's some fun references. Like, I got excited to see like an Army Darkness boomstick reference, and I those little sort of fun tidbits are really great. And I particularly love. Now, I don't know if they had planned to do this before they cast me, or if they wrote it in because they knew I was a singer, but when she's idle, she just starts singing these like Sinatra crooner tunes out of nowhere, I guess thinking about how much she loves her fiance. And it's just such a weird, fun thing, just imagining this woman who, a room full of decimated corpses, and just while she's taking a break, she just starts singing Frank Sinatra. I love that, and I love recording those bits too. But yeah, they'll just sort of send me chunks of scripts, I guess, at a time, and then I usually end up recording like multiple takes per line. They're usually really good at describing what she's doing and where she is and how they want that line to sort of be perceived. And then if we have to do retakes, we'll do retakes, and that's pretty much it. They get to pick their favorite take, and it's fun to sort of see what actually ends up in the game.
It's a funny story about that. It's actually a reference to Blood, another first-person shooter. The main character, Caleb, he likes to sing along to himself. That's something that the voice actor improvised in the voice acting in the recording studio back then. So if you're just lounging around doing nothing, then he'll just break out into song, just crooning to himself in this creepy voice like, "There's no business like showing business like."
Amazing.
It's brilliant, ain't it?
It's just fully nightmare-inducing, basically.
And just imagine, blood and gore everywhere, body parts, and then you just hear him just crooning along to, "On the good ship, lollipop."
Awesome. That's great. No, and the script is chock full of those references too. And I mean, I played like Doom and Commander Keen as a kid, but like I don't have a lot of experience with most of the references. So for the most part, they're good at like throwing in a clip of like, this is what it's supposed to be referencing. Or if I don't know, I have no problem saying, is this a reference or is this as you guys?
So what is your reaction to the fan response to the game and especially to Caroline?
I'm happy that for the most part it seems to be positive, and for the most part people seem to have fun with it. And I think that's important because that was kind of my goal voicing her, was to just have a blast. And that seems to be the way it's perceived, which is great. I do, because I'm more of the higher end of the spectrum in terms of like voice pitch. I'm still nervous that I teeter that line between like super annoying Harley Quinn bad impression thing or, hopefully Caroline is her own thing. And I think people seem to be responding here. Of course, they're always going to compare you to whatever, but I did see certain comparisons to like Harley or Tiny Tina or something. And I'm like, oh, that makes my day. But I'm glad that she's growing into her own character and that people seem to be responding really well. And I have noticed on the Discord channel, there's a lot of awesome like fan art and stuff. I'm really excited to see more of that kind of stuff too.
Any thoughts on people having a crush on Caroline? Nerds.
Well, let's just say I'm no stranger to falling in love with fictional characters myself, so I 100% get it. I still maintain to this day that I probably had an emotional affair with Alistair from Dragon Age Origins. Completely unexpected. I thought I was going to hate the guy when I first met him, and by the end I was depressed because he sacrificed himself and it was terrible. And I get into fandoms all the time, and I really love seeing the fan art and the fanfic and the cosplays and all the stuff that sort of comes with that. So I'm absolutely welcome it. I'm cool with it. I guess ask, don't be creepy with it. That's all. Remember, voice actors are people.
Now, you voiced in many other titles, ranging from Heroes of New Earth to The Story of Elena. Are there any other roles that stand out to you?
I don't know if my resume is long enough to consider many. I am still relatively new, and like I said, I don't really consider it a full-time gig, really. But the game voices that I have gotten have all been really... I've just been proud of them because basically voiceover in games is sort of what drew me to voice acting in the first place. And yeah, you have to do your radio commercials and your online explainers to sort of get some cash, but it is the character work that I get excited about. So all of them are pretty special to me. The first one you mentioned, Heroes of New Earth, is important because it was my very first video game character that I got paid for, which was kind of a milestone checklist moment. She was called the Vanishing Woman. She was this like cool superhero character that could turn invisible, and I voiced a couple characters for a really cool mobile game called Soul Hunters, and I played that game way longer than I probably should have. It took a lot of hours out of my life, but it was great. There's this one character called Tanya the Executioner, and she was always my favorite one to put at the front of my team. And she's trying to be all serious and like mysterious and everything, but then she's got this cute little avatar with the giant head and the baby body, and it's just really fun. I just like the extreme characters that can come out of of voicing characters, basically.
So are you a gamer? And do you have any favorite games?
My genre is definitely the sort of epic high fantasy RPG style. Anything Elder Scrolls, particularly Skyrim, and I did when I started voice acting. Before I put any sort of official money into it, I would do it as a hobby, and I would voice under a pseudonym. I would voice some Skyrim mods and Fallout mods and stuff, and those are really fun and a great way to learn if you're looking to get into it to do, because it's just easier when you sort of have a generic idea of the world around you and you already sort of know how things are supposed to sound, and then so you can just sort of slip yourself into it and experiment. What else do I love? I really loved Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm excited for the new one to come out. Right now, what are we playing? In our household, we're playing Hades and replaying Stardew Valley and a lot of Minecraft with my kid. And I personally am playing Stranded Deep. I don't really know why. I'm giving myself like a stress ulcer every time I'm in the water for a potential shark attack, but it's pretty fun. I think I'm nearing the end of it though, and I don't know what's next.
You're also an experienced singer, so where did you train for that? Who are your inspirations for singing? Do you have any favourite bands and artists?
I trained in my hometown as a teenager with a couple different voice coaches, and then that went to college where you sort of train with a bunch of different people. And then it's just sort of there when you go from show to show, you're always working with like music directors and coaches and whatnot. And now I don't coach with anyone in particular. I just more do it as a hobby or for fun. I mean, I guess I do record quite a bit of kids content, and there's a lot of like nursery rhyme stuff in there as well. But there's always vocal coaches around, and I do know a handful of actors like to do voice coaching, like singing, even if they're not in musical theater, even if they're just in regular theater or whatnot, just because it really helps develop your voice and learn like vocal technique and just get you more confident, I suppose, in the way you speak. But there's certainly no shortage of vocal coaches, I think, in any city. And music, I am not really good at listening to music. I had a lot of friends that were musicians just through the theater world, and I used to love going out and listening to them live. But, you know, you have a kid and you kind of stop going out, full stop. And right now I seem to just put on like soundtracks, instrumental soundtracks, game soundtracks, movie soundtracks, just anything that I can still focus on something else, but it's just sort of a nice ambiance. There's like a million awesome playlists on YouTube, you know, whether it's lo-fi Avatar music or like playlists of like, you're the main character in a Jane Austen movie, like those kinds of things I like to just put on. But if I'm looking for like a cool pop bop, I would recommend Ali X, maybe. She's pretty awesome.
Okay, so what video game soundtracks stand out to you?
I'm gonna say Skyrim again. That just, or any Elder Scrolls, you know, sort of instantly transports you back into the games, which is pretty cool. Because we're playing a lot of Hades, we've been kind of obsessed with them right now, and I think they're called Supergiant Games. It's like a male and female, and it's a lot of just harmony over like epic music in the background. It kind of reminds me of Evanescence from the 90s. And so that's inspiring right now as well. Yeah. What other game soundtracks? I don't know. I like a lot of Danny Elfman movie soundtracks. Just a nice mix. I know you can get like channels that sort of specialize in those sort of tunes.
All right, let's talk about dream roles. Do you have any dream voice acting roles that you would love to do?
I used to get asked this in theater as well, and I never had a good answer. I don't know if there are. I mean, I guess the closest I could say is something akin to Jennifer Hale doing Commander Shepard, which I think any woman my age would cite as their, one of, if not their top inspiration for voice acting. Just something that lets you sort of explore all angles of a character. Like what's so great about, I guess, the BioWare world in terms of characters is you get to do the good guy version, then you get to do the renegade version, but then you also get to explore friendship and relationship with like all your teammates. And it's just every aspect of that character gets explored, and that's really fascinating. So I wouldn't mind doing some, huge character-driven character in a game. But in terms of like an actual role, I don't think so. With voice acting, the role is what it is, and I think it's hard to sort of reinvent a role. Whereas with theater, it's always a new actor in the role for every production. But voice acting, it's recorded, so it's hard to imagine anyone else doing like Katara or Azula. You know what I mean? I can't think of a specific. But then I will say, on the same coin, anyone with like pointy ears and a hood and maybe a bow and arrow who's like mysterious and sort of hangs in the shadows, I'm always drawn to those kinds of characters. So give me like a rogue elf in like an epic RPG. I don't know. That's the best you're gonna get.
So when you're not voice acting or singing, how do you like to unwind?
Oh, that is a good question. I have a lot of hobbies. I try to learn a lot of things. I like, music-wise, I play the uke, I play the piano. I picked up the recorder during the pandemic, much to the chagrin of my household. I have a theremin, which is this wild sci-fi instrument that's incredibly difficult to play, so I haven't touched it in months. But that's really cool and fun. I also do a lot of hobby costuming, like sewing fantasy-based costumes or just generic clothes or what have you. Just for some reason, costume creation is really, it's a cool way to sort of use your brain in a different way and problem solve and still be creative and, make something from nothing with your hands. And gaming, obviously, that's a big one to relaxing. I'm a meditator. I like sort of exploring that whole self-brain world. What else? I don't know. That's probably it.
Janna, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Ooh, just thanks for being excited and for, enjoying the art that I helped create, and keep watching to see if, what new stuff comes out of it, maybe. And come say hi on, like, Instagram. That's the only really place that I'm usually active. And, thanks. Thanks for caring.
And I'd also like to thank my lovely listeners out there for checking out another great interview right here on the Cyberden, your weekly dose of tech and games. Thanks for coming, Jan. Watch out for those aliens.
Will do. Name's Caroline, the sadistic mercenary of the boomer shooter known as Viscerafest. Keep listening to Jake the Voice on the Cyberden, and if you don't, perhaps I'll pay you a visit with my shiny weapons to persuade you with.